All right, let's get started and go through these forms real quick, um, and talk about these updates. I know Ellen, who is in an appointment, said that she has started using the forms. Janine, it sounds like I know you at least use the professional services one. You asked about that yesterday. So I'm gonna I sent you all this link. I'll put the link in the video too if people want to reference it when they watch. But we're really just going to go through, of course, just the residential ones and the ones that apply to most transactions. I'm not going to go into the vacant lot ones or the new construction ones just because they're used very rarely. You can just pull those up and reference as needed. But changes to the offer to purchase. Can y'all see? I know you're on your phones, but hopefully you can see this. So a little bit different look here on page one or item one. Let's see. 1.1, there's now reference to the Form 2A10T, which is covered later in the summary. The remainder of the edits in the paragraph are focused on saving space and making the language easier to read. Certainly don't have any problems with that. Just remember that it's still here about the manufactured or mobile home or the off-site. A lot of time people get in a hurry and miss these little boxes. And then you can see the 2A10T about additional parcels. So just make sure you're doing your due diligence and not flying through these. This isn't necessarily for anyone on the call, but applies to anyone. Uh, the documents in the loops have been super sloppy lately. I need everybody to make sure that they're taking their time and actually going through these and treating them as important as they are because we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. The documents need to be done right and the loops need to be clean with the right documents and the right placeholders, etc. So please take your time and do that the right way. I'm going to move on. So now there's concessions. It references concessions here in 1E. It says in addition to buyer agent compensation. So that's not what's going here. This is just the total, or I mean, this is for any closing costs credits that they're providing. Moving on, the due diligence date. Time is of the essence, of course. It explains further here that, let me read exactly what the language says here. The due diligence fee has always been due on the effective date, and this continues to be the case as shown in paragraph 1D. However, edits to this paragraph make clear that if the due diligence fee is not paid on the effective date, then the buyer is not in breach the next day and has otherwise been the case in the past. Instead, the buyer has until the end of the next banking day following the effective date to pay before they will be in breach. Also, as a reminder, just like in previous versions, the buyer's breach for failing to deliver the DD fee on time does not automatically give the seller the right to terminate the contract. The seller must still give written notice, there's a separate form for that, demanding the buyer pay within one banking day, Form 35 or 355T. If the buyer fails to pay during the short cure period, then the seller may terminate, but they are not required to do so. See paragraph 6 of Form 2T for more information about that if you want to check it out. Any questions about any of this so far? So, you still want your folks to be prepared to deliver the due diligence right away. So make sure you know that you're setting the expectation for that, but also they have one banking day. And that applies because a lot of people don't have checks anymore, and a lot of sellers don't want to take Venmo. So somebody might have to go get a bank check or a money order or something like that. Just make sure you're setting the expectations as always, so it's not a surprise for anybody. Let's see. 1.5. Six. This basically talks about point E here under 6, information for governmental reporting. If applicable, buyer must provide the closing attorney with any information necessary to comply with the government reporting requirements, including but not limited to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. Basically, some sellers might get funny about giving they're I mean, buyers might get funny about giving information to the attorney. You can't. You got to give them everything that they ask for. Okay. That's basically what it comes down to. Um,
Hey, Doug,
what? Yeah.
question for you. Sorry, I couldn't get myself off mute in time.
Okay.
When you were talking about DD, I'm running more and more into people, seller agents who are saying, no, we can't wire, we can't do this, and just put it in the mail. It's fine, just put it in a regular mail.
Well,
My,
that's fine because you've sent it. It hadn't gotten there yet. Just tell your
okay,
people they need to overnight it and they need to get tracking. This can't be mail it in an envelope from your house and just hope the post office gets it there.
that's what, right. So but I've run into a lot of agents, seller agents that are saying to me, oh, just put it in the regular mail. That leaves them open to being able to, if they got a really awesome offer, they could cancel, right? Because it's in between. They didn't deliver the DD in 24 hours,
I
right?
think that you could argue if you gave them tracking info and you can document that they said mail it, you're going to be covered.
Okay. But
But
definitely have to
100%.
track.
I
I
think that's
always
why
send
the
the
tracking
tracking.
info is so important.
Yeah. I
Yep.
just feel,
It's on the way. I can't control when it gets there.
yeah,
Yes. It's, yeah. Don't get
but
butthurt
definitely
about
send
it.
it
That
track.
actually,
Don't put it in like the
yes.
regular mail. Yeah.
And
Right.
that's a
My
condition
girl,
of the offer. How to deliver it is a condition of the offer. So that
yeah,
shouldn't be figured out after you're under contract. Make sure you're having that conversation with your
right.
buyer and also with the listing agent before you get under contract.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Speaking
have
of
been.
that,
Go ahead.
speaking of that, I have had on both sides, listing agent and buyer agent. I'll check a couple boxes if if we haven't exactly ironed out. Maybe they'll do Venmo, maybe they'll do personal check or bank check, depending on what the sellers prefer as well. So I sometimes will check more than one of those boxes.
Yeah. I've done that too. And
Yeah,
it's just more the seller agent telling us, no, just put it in regular mail. Like, yeah, I don't feel
I'm
comfortable
like,
with that.
no,
No.
yeah.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't do that either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a girl, my girl, she spent a lot of money to overnight the check and it didn't get there. And well, it got there 3 days later, but she canceled it in the meantime and voided it. And we ended up doing a wire, which was a pain in the ass, but we did it. And so even if you pay for the overnight, it still may or may not get there. You know, you can't control it. They were fine with it because they knew it wasn't her fault, but it was very frustrating for sure.
Yeah.
That's good conversation. I just think it's best to get ahead of it and make sure that you have that discussion before anything's executed to set the right expectations for the buyer and the seller. Um, One other point here, it says the home warranty has been moved from page 9 of the form up to page 2, right here. I don't know why they don't just go ahead and put it up here with all the rest of the financial things, so it's just all on the same page. But okay. Um, make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, I'm missing it. Where's the 220 supposed to be represented on here?
You know, I don't know that I saw a spot for that, but I think it's
It's
just
not.
assumed that we still continue to use that. But I
You
do know that
do.
the 220 looks different. It looks different and it's way better.
It is. It's way better. And then right
And
underneath
the
the
agents don't have to
financials,
sign it. Yeah.
yeah, right
Make
underneath the
something.
financials, Doug, you'll see it says concessions, and it says beyond what's being arranged
Done.
with
Yeah.
I don't think it calls out the 220,
It
Okay.
but
doesn't.
it
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 doesn't.
just says aging compensation. So,
Yes.
yeah, but 220 is not baked in here. You're still doing a separate 220.
But I have
Yes.
seen where now people are using it in
Other.
other
Yep.
and referenced here. I mean, if it's a form, why the hell not just put it here?
Yep.
Are we allowed to put it in the offer now, Doug?
I've
I thought we
seen
weren't
it.
allowed to put it.
I've seen it there.
It's an amendment now, isn't it? Isn't that also what that update
Oh, it
was?
is?
Yes, I mean it's supposed to be. So that's why I don't understand why it's not just listed with all the other.
Yes, as one of the
Okay, well, I didn't
amendments.
put it on mine when I did it. I just did it separately.
I didn't either. I wrote my July 1st offer, so it did. It,
But no,
I
I'm
didn't.
just saying with my offer,
Yeah.
I just attached it as a separate
Yeah.
PDF and I didn't write it on the OTP, just like we've
I think-
always done.
I think during our classes, Jenna, I think vaguely remember a conversation around they're making it so we can talk about it in the offer. So it can be added as other because they changed the form to be an amendment, but it's still not listed as one of the key amendments that we use. It should be because
Then if we're
every
listing it
single
as an
one.
amendment,
Technically,
gonna
it's
have
not
to
an
go to the lender
amendment.
and
It's an
return.
addendum.
Yeah.
It's
Addendum,
part of the
sorry.
contract.
Yeah.
It's not-
Addendum. Sorry.
Addendum, sorry.
That's okay. But since they reference the compensation in that section, I don't see why you can't add it to the contract as other. It's just
Right.
if
Okay,
they're making it clear that it's part of it, just list it with all those other addenda.
So let me ask you this, if you do list it, then now it has to go to the attorney and the lender.
Well, they're asking for the shit anyways.
Oh, I've never sent a 220 to an attorney or lender.
Yeah, and I'm sending agency agreements now too. They're asking for
Me
those
too.
too.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
Yeah,
all three.
yeah,
Yep.
Mhm.
Good God, I've never been asked for those.
yeah. Well, it's coming. Just hang in there.
Yeah. Well, seems
All
like
right,
the last
so
6 months.
I'm not really going to go over for the guidelines. I'm not going to go over the backup contract addendum. All they did was remove note boxes. I'm not going to do the new construction addendum. You just make sure you understand that it's not used that often anyways. The additional parcel, that's what's referenced in that first section of the contract that we were talking about earlier. So make sure that if there is an additional parcel, you don't just check that box on the contract. You also need to fill out this form and attach it.
No.
Additional provisions addendum edits have been made to remove note and warning boxes. Vacation rental addendum for you coast folks might want to pay attention to this. Sellers must now provide rental agreements to the buyer within 7 days. Buyers also now agree to keep this information confidential. Rents have traditionally been prorated pursuant to language in 2T. This continues to be the default. However, parties can make their own arrangement. Also makes it clear now what is the security deposit and how that's dispersed. Major change, the buyer still has a choice on whether to pay any money to the seller or not if they choose a new management firm. I guess that would be if like there's a penalty for leaving the management agreement early. Default is the buyer agrees to pay for all costs incurred by a seller if there's a default. So they can negotiate that as well. Also, buyers should now sign a management agreement with the existing management firm by the end of the due diligence period rather than settlement if they plan to keep the seller's management firm. So FYI. New form judicial sale addendum. I know a couple of us have dealt with this. Judicial sales can be complicated and vary widely from county to county, and many or may have significant differences depending on why the sale is occurring, like a foreclosure, partition sale, court-ordered sale. This addendum makes clear that the transaction will be subject and subordinate to all local laws and rules and significantly alter certain obligations of the buyer and seller in some cases. So just an FYI, this is now a thing. If you've got something that's court ordered, foreclosure, etc., you need to have this completed and fill out as part of the sale. One thing I always have a question about, it's why don't they put the form numbers on every form? Why do some have the form number on the form and some don't? Anyways, just a pet peeve. Let's see. Agreement to amend. Edits have been made to remove note and warning boxes. Also, members can now add or remove both sellers and buyers with the new edit in the first section, allowing the addition of sellers to the contract. Another two things I want to point out too, just as I'm reviewing a lot more loops lately. There are way too many strike throughs and initials going on documents. We need a lot cleaner documents. If you're not under contract yet, don't go through and strike something out and just have your buyer initial. Remove the original thing, make the edit, and have your client sign the entire document again. Also, use the actual amendments when you have to change something and make sure that you number each one. The very top of the form has a number. So 1, 2, 3, if you have multiple ones. Okay. Make sure you're doing it the right way. Let's see.
Hey, Deb.
Yeah.
Question around that. I really like to keep the trajectory of how things went. Like we started here, then we crossed off that, and we did this, and then when they did this. That's why I don't like to go all the way back to a clean one. Or how do you recommend? Can we keep those crossed off ones and then right at the end do a clean one and put the crossed off ones in archive? I just want to be able to have documentation of how the offer moved along.
Are you not
Am I
are you
being
not negotiating
overly?
via text message? I think that's overthinking it. I usually just
Okay.
negotiate via phone call or text message and then make the clean edit and send it back.
Yeah, things more so things down the road, the inspections, that all that kind of stuff. Those are more 4Ts anyways, typically.
Yeah.
Right.
We
I
also
just
have
like
your
to have
activity
all.
log in
That's what
that
I was
loop.
going to
So, I
say.
mean,
You can see the history of the changes to a document. If you change it and then, you change the price or whatever. If you want to archive it, it's fine. But the two things, all the strike throughs and stuff just is way too jumbled. And a lot of time
Yep.
initials are missing in a certain spot, or they're not completely struck through, or it looks like it's struck through, but it's underlined and there's not another box. And then there's an initial. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here?
Yep.
But if you want to keep a track of one, just archive it so there's not 3 copies of the same document
Right.
actively in the loop.
So I can even create a folder in there instead of archive and just put progression.
Yeah,
And then so
that's
all
fine.
those in that folder and then just keep one. Yeah, no,
You could do that. Yeah, of course.
I am remedial at best when it comes to my loop. I'd be the first to raise my hand and throw myself on the sword. So this is
And
good.
I understand what you're talking about as far as like agreeing to changes or whatever and being able to
Yeah.
document that. What I'd say is more important is that the actual final one is easy to discern what it means.
Got it.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
so let's go to the right to sell listing agreement. So I'm going to pull this one up.
Yeah, I haven't looked at this one yet. How many pages is it this time?
I think it feels like it's less. I haven't counted them.
It is still 7 pages.
Okay, cool. At least it's not longer.
No.
Right. All right, let's see.
Chris,
So 12.1 major change. So it's way down in the document. Oh no, hold on, wait a second. Sorry. 6A. It's throwing me off with the way they do it. MLSs across the state have begun implementing a new marketing option for sellers, which was introduced by NAR last year. The section's been updated to explain this new option to sellers, as well as provide the necessary disclaimer for both Office exclusive and the new marketing option. So marketing coming soon, signs, open house, general advertising, limited distribution and or exposure. This is for Compass when they have their own private listing page, so it's not an
Oh,
MLS
yeah.
or IDX. And then this is an exclusive listing. So the limited distribution seems to be the new one because the office exclusive was always there. 7B, a line has been added to address what the firm's compensation may be if a buyer is unrepresented. So here's a big question. You're doing double the work. A buyer doesn't want representation. I don't need an agent. Okay, you don't need an agent, but you're doing double the work as the listing agent then, right? Whether you represent them or not. So you can say a percentage of the property's gross price, like we usually do, your 3 point whatever, you know. Buyer agent compensation. What line is it? 7B. And then a property's gross price if the buyer is unrepresented. So maybe you're doing 3.5 and 2.5, okay? But maybe you say if the buyer's unrepresented, you do 4.5.
Don't you have to ask your seller permission if they're okay to have a buyer that's unrepresented?
Yeah,
Okay.
they're doing it right here in the agency agreement.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, if they sign this and you fill it out, they're agreeing to it. You don't have to have their permission. A buyer's allowed to be unrepresented. Seller doesn't have to
Right,
okay that
right.
part. They have to okay paying
Right.
you more if you're doing an unrepresented transaction.
Gotcha.
So I would definitely recommend using that. I think that's a great idea. Probably won't ever come up, but it's good for you to be covered because it has come up.
Yep. And then Doug, when let's say you end up, those numbers change by the time you close, just like a buyer's agreement, we come back here, cross it out and have them initial.
Actually, there's an amendment for that.
Oh, there's an amendment. I did
Yeah.
not. Is that new?
No, we had it last year.
Okay. Didn't know.
Let's see. And then what this is really for, this buyer unrepresented thing, is because the talk about doing away with dual agency. So they're basically saying this gives you a way to say, I'm not a dual agent, but I'm handling both sides anyways. Because a lot of smaller firms make their living representing both sides. And I think instead of doing away with it completely, they're changing this language so people can continue to effectively be a dual agent because that's what is happening. They just don't have any fiduciary duty to the buyer because they're they're unrepresented. Does that make sense?
It does, but our firm still won't do that, correct?
Oh.
No, we're still not going to do dual agency. But if you get a buyer who is, they're like, no, I don't want to use one of the other agents in your firm.
Got it.
I
Yeah.
want to be unrepresented. Then this is the option because you're going to end up doing double the work.
Mm-hmm.
To protect you and everybody, I would still I would still suggest that they go to another agent. But if they're insistent, and some people are because they think they're going to save thousands of dollars, then do that.
Okay.
Go ahead, Janine.
So essentially, I was just going to say, essentially, in a situation like that, you're just facilitating an opposite FSBO.
Yeah.
And just run paperwork.
Yep. Okay. Yep. It's just the other side of that coin. Good call. All right. Let's go to 7C, buyer agent compensation. So this is a major change. Language has been adjusted to accommodate the new law allowing buyer agent compensation to be addressed in the contract, even though it doesn't list the form, but that clearly states that it can be addressed in the contract. Now there's only one standard option to choose if the seller wishes to offer buyer agent compensation. If the listing firm has their own policy, then they may check the second box and attach it. Otherwise, if there's a buyer agent compensation approved by the seller as part of the negotiation or of negotiating the contract, then it should be paid directly by the seller using the redrafted Form 220 explained below. So, seller authorizes the firm to advise X, or the firm has a policy in place Basically, we're never using the firm box here. Always check the seller box. The firm is
Yep.
not offering any compensation. If any is being offered, it's offered by the seller. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And then, as always, the total cost is optional here. You don't have to add up the two. I would add up the two if there's no unrepresented buyer, or you could just do both. 6% if buyer is represented total, 4.5% or whatever if buyer is unrepresented, whatever you decide. Protection period, I always use 365 days. All right, let's see.
So you said
All right.
don't add it up because my listing agreements right now say seller X, buyer 2.5 equals Y. So don't do that?
You can, it's optional.
Oh, okay.
See right there on D, it says total cost optional.
Oh,
I mean, I
Okay,
do
sorry,
it,
I'm not looking. I do it. Okay.
but you're not required. And now, if you're going to check that buyer unrepresented box too, you need to make sure you add both totals there and explain why. All right, let's see. 13, language added to make it clear this up. 13, seller's duties. Blah, 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 same as it's always been. Seller must provide valid identification at any time upon request and affirms that their identification is correct. Seller affirms that they have the legal right to sell the property. So we all get those emails. Hey, I want to sell my lot. I found you on Zillow,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. Okay, here's the agency agreement. You can see in 13, whatever, that I need a copy of your ID. Please provide that when you
Yep.
move forward. Whatever. Let's see. The as typical, the edits to like the vacant stuff should be similar to what's on the residential property or home stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The vacant land disclosure has been redrafted. I will take a look at this real quick because it's true, it's really long. So now it's just a bunch of yes, no, and a chance to fill in the info. I like that. It's a lot cleaner. It was like filling a professional services document out. Exclusive buyer agency agreement. Language been added, make it clear buyer must comply with closing attorney instructions and obligations.
Yep. Why wouldn't you do that? That makes no sense.
People think they're smarter than the average bear. Edits have been made to this section to address scenarios when a buyer may not originally contemplate buying a new construction, but end up buying a new construction property. The FinCEN stuff, again, non-exclusive buyer agency agreement. Why would you use that? Value
Yeah.
your time. Cooperative compensation agreement form's been redrafted to be an addendum to a purchase contract. So there you go, instead of a standalone agreement. Seems like they would.
Yeah,
That's even more reason to list it. But anyways,
yep.
so there you go. And again, no agent signatures, just buyers and sellers.
Yep.
Much cleaner. I like it.
Yeah, I like it better too.
Technical edits to accommodate the new D thing. We've already talked about that. The referral agreement. This just makes it clear that the firm is who is entitled to the payment and not an agent in particular. That's how it works. Unless you're not affiliated with a firm and you're not like an active agent or you have your own firm. Sometimes that applies, which I guess would be the difference. We saw the professional services. I'm not sure why the things that I didn't hold up in the form. But I see a lot of people that just use it and if they're waiving it, they just don't put anything. So I think that's an acceptable way to do it and then just put in your folks' stuff.
Yeah,
The
that's
one
how I
thing
did
that I
it. I
want to
just left
add
blank what
that
was
I
really
added
important.
was for additional services, you need to make sure that you're doing it for your sellers and that you're putting photography and measurements in there. So make sure that you're using that because you need to get permission for that as well.
Oh,
And that was in the old professional services that I had in the loops.
Yes. Yes,
mhm.
it was.
Offer to purchase new construction, pretty simple. And that's it. So any questions or revisit anything?
I have
I'm
a
sure I'll still
question.
have questions.
Well, of course. And if anybody has questions regarding the new forms when you start going through them, I would encourage you to ask them in the group so everybody can participate or at least view that conversation, so people can kind of learn about what's going on just by observing.
Hey, I have a question, Doug.
Yeah.
It seems like I'm entering in basic information about me over and over again. That should be
Yes.
some bringing like our firm address, our firm number, my license number. Um, did I miss something in my template on Loop?
The way I've set it up, most of the firm stuff should be in there, but because we share the loop templates, no individual agent stuff is going to populate just by it being in the
Okay.
template.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So I didn't miss anything. All right.
And also, this has been the case, but just in case you're not using it this way, or if you get a document from another agent because of what's currently in MLS, um, for the agent information on page whatever of the contract, you need to make sure you're using my home address as the firm address.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah,
I'll get an
a lot
offer and they'll have the
of
Holly
them
Ridge
have done.
address in there because that's what's in one of the MLSs. But just kind of make sure you're double checking that. And that'll all be fixed in the next, hopefully, month or two when I get everything redone just to my home address.
And I think I know the answer to this, but seeing that we're on the cusp of turnover of the documents, if we were to get an offer for one of our listings that was on the old form, is that okay? Is there
Yeah, the grace period is typically like 90 days.
90 days? Okay. So we don't have to send
So
it
you don't
back.
have to redo any agreements you have in place now or anything like that.
Cool.
Yeah, that'd be a pain in the ass.
Wouldn't it?
But all the agents should all be up to speed with using new documents.
Yes.
All right, so it doesn't sound too painful. The one that sounds like I'll have to do a lot more reading and clarification is the listing agreement.
Mhm. The part where I'm trying to think through, and again, I have a habit of thinking way too much about things, but the listing, I've been clicking firm because
For what?
it's for compensation in the
No,
event
it's seller.
that, right. But why I was doing that was like, for example, we have this listing where we're going to pay up to 3%, but it really depends on the offer. So it seemed, because it was undefined, I thought putting it under firm would just putting it all under firm. And then the firm decides how much to give to the buyer.
But the firm's not deciding.
The seller is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Gotcha. So just put it under seller and define it and then use
Yeah.
the amendment to change it for whatever
Yep.
reason you
Yep.
have to. Okay. I'll have to
Correct.
change that one.
And because I see a lot of people put 3% on their buyer agency agreement. And then
I
Yeah.
always do.
they
I
have to
do for
change
every
it.
single one. And then I go back and I
You
change it
do?
if I have to. I do. I do.
No, I do 2.5. I've rarely ever, the only time I've gotten a 3 is if it's a builder and or somebody. I think I've only had like one or two, and then I've only changed it like one time where I've ever had to change from a 2.5 to 3.
And that's what I've done. If like they
Yeah.
decide to
Yeah.
go new construction and they're offering 3, I'll
Yeah.
just change it at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you're going to
That's
do a
what I
lot
did.
less changing that way. But I mean,
Yes,
do whatever you want.
exactly.
Yeah.
Just
I
make
just
sure
like-
you
'Cause
do
you
the
don't know
right
which
way.
house they're gonna. Yeah,
I,
you don't know which way they're gonna land, and also you can't get more than what it says.
correct. But I use it more as like, I will take mine down, right?
Yeah,
I
you're
will
setting
do
the expectation. I get it.
Exactly.
I get it. I don't think there's
Part of
anything wrong with that.
psychology. So,
It's just to make sure you do things, just make sure the right
Yep.
documents are done at the right time. That's all.
yep.
Yep.
Because I had
And
clients
Doug,
and I was like, hey, you need to change the buyer agency agreement because the construction company or whoever the builder is paying different than what our agency agreement said. And they said, were they paying less? And I say, no, they're paying more. And they're like, oh, well, you deserve it. So yeah, we'll
Yeah.
sign it.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
the fear
yeah, that's
is people
yes,
might be like,
yes.
oh, they're paying more, and your client might be, well, why didn't I get it?
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
reason, if any, to start at a higher number.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, you don't know what house they're going to land on and what that compensation is going to be. So what if it's 2% and you're, so
Yeah.
you just gotta, I always just do 2.5, and whatever. Sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 2, mostly it's 2.5. All right. Well, cool deal. Not too painful.
No,
No.
I don't think so. I hope this was helpful to everybody.
So Doug, moving forward, we do need to list the 220 as an addendum then,
Yes.
addendum.
You should put it
Okay.
on there. Yep.
Okay. And also, I don't want to, you would advise, and I've always done this, I always make sure that the listing agent gives it to me signed before my people sign it, because sometimes they're asking me to fill it out.
If it's referenced on the contract, it's part of the contract. So if somebody tried to pull any funny business, then they're in breach of contract because it's a part of the contract.
Oh, I like that.
It doesn't matter if
Okay.
the seller hasn't signed the document and you send it over with that, with the offer.
Okay. Okay.
Like it.
Because I know Brandon did that. He was like, well, look, until your seller signs this, I'm not going to send the offer over. Well, now that it's referenced on the contract and part of the contract, that part of the conversation is moot.
Yeah. You just have to ask the question first so you know what to put on the damn form.
Or, you just put what you want on there and you negotiate it. Because maybe
Oh, yeah.
you have an agreement for 3 with your buyer and you send it over for 3.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I was talking with another guy who's an agent, and he said, I don't know why everybody isn't asking for 3.
Yep. I just did that to be able to get a price decrease. Like, well, we have an agency agreement for 3. They're already in the hole for 0.5 to me. We really need to have some wiggle room on the price.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Also,
And I
nothing
had
is
no
selling.
intention of-
Aren't you tired of being on the market? Give me
Yeah.
3%.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's a legitimate approach where we are right now because rates went back up to 10-month highs yesterday.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Jesus.
okay.
Yep.
It's a roller coaster.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I got to finish up a video here. Thanks again, Doug. Appreciate it.
You guys are so welcome. Thanks for
Thank
popping
you
on.
very much.
Let me know if you have any questions, okay?
Yep.
Y'all have a great day.
Thanks.
You
All
too.
right.
Bye.
See ya. All right. Bye.